Chief Moore, it's great to have you here. Thanks for your testimony and for coming before the committee. It's great to have Chairman Westerman here today. He has forgotten more about forestry than most of us will ever know, yourself excluded in that, of course. I'm going to ask a background question, Chief, and then a legal question that I'm very interested in. First of all, though, while I appreciate the attention paid to wildfire in the budget, I am concerned that this money won't translate to reduced fires for reasons I will get into in a minute. The Pike and San Isabel National Forests in or near my district have a tree stand density of 250 to 300 trees per acre. A healthy forest should have roughly 50 to 80 trees per acre. In fall 2020, Colorado saw the two largest wildfires in state history, the Cameron Peak Fire and the East Troublesome Fire. Despite robust federal funding, fuel material continues to pile up on federal lands. So, Chief, what methodology does the Forest Service use to decide the appropriate level of fuel material and tree stand density on any given land?
So what we're trying to mimic, Congressman, and by the way, thanks for that question. It's very informed. In many places outside of Colorado, we have even more trees per acre than what you mentioned, the 300. In fact, we have 600 plus in some of our locations across the West. And if we want to mimic conditions in the past, what we want to get down to is somewhere between 40 and 80 trees per acre. And so that is a dilemma, but it's also an opportunity for us working with the communities and our state partners to say, how do we come up with a plan collectively, collaterally, and how do we take advantage of the opportunities we have now? If you look at the FY24 budget, we have a lot of opportunities there. And it's a great opportunity for us to engage with our community leaders, state, tribal, and other federal partners to look at what do we do here? And I mentioned earlier in my opening statement about wood innovations, and it's an opportunity there to create new economic opportunities in many of our small rural communities. But we want to do that with our communities, and we want to be able to sit down with them. And so it's not the Forest Service dictating or deciding what we do and how we provide these opportunities, but it's us sitting around the table with others to say, okay, here's our challenge.
Okay.
Let's pursue opportunities together.
Okay, thank you, and I wish you all the success on that. Now to the legal issue that I think is a major obstacle to achieving this goal. The President's budget requests hundreds of millions of dollars for wildfire treatment, despite the fact that both the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law and Infrastructure and Jobs Act each gave federal agency billions of dollars for wildfire management. Despite clear congressional authority to remove this fuel, agencies refuse to do it for fear of lawsuits. In the 2018 Farm Bill, categorical exclusions were signed into law that would allow all federal agencies to remove dead and dying trees without an environmental impact statement or assessment. This opened up hundreds of millions of acres to wildfire fuel reduction, but only a few 100,000 acres have been treated. A copy of the Forest Service Handbook specifically states that the Forest Service will not use fuel-related categorical exclusions because of the 2007 appellate court case, Sierra Club v. Bosworth, a Ninth Circuit decision in which Sierra Club sued the Federal Service for trying to remove dead trees even after they'd been burned in a wildfire. And I'd like to submit this handbook language into the record without objection. So ordered. So, Chief Moore, is the Forest Service still prevented from carrying out fuel removal using categorical exclusions because of the appellate Bosworth decision?
Yeah, so, litigation is what it is, and it's a part of our society. So let me say what we are doing, if I can.
No, talk about the Bosworth decision, if you would.
What I want to talk about, though, is to answer that by letting you know what we have been doing and how we've adjusted based on litigation. Right now, 85% of our environmental assessments are done through categorical exclusions, and that's about 4,000 on an annual basis. And so we are using categorical exclusion to the tune of about 85% of our NEPA documentation. So that's what I was talking about, streamlining, finding new efficiencies. Regardless of litigation, we are working with our communities and partners to streamline this. One other piece I might add here is that the Secretary has given us emergency authorities to use, particularly in the wildfire crisis strategy, on 28 million acres that's considered in these landscapes, these fire sheds. So to date, we've had 8 requests to come in to use this authority. We've approved 6 of them. And so we're moving out on trying to create lots of opportunities to remove a lot of that vegetation using, our partners, both at the state, federal, tribal, and nonprofit level.
Well, Chief, I'm glad that you are using some of those various tools. I wish that you had the opportunity to use even more. I question whether Bosworth at Ninth Circuit should apply even or should be applied in a state like Colorado, which is in the 10th Circuit. But beyond that, in the 2018 Farm Bill, Congress and the President passed legislation saying use it in this context. And the Forest Service is specifically saying, because of a previous case predating the legislation in 2018, we're not going to even touch it. We're not going to even go there. So I really question that approach, Chief, and I wish you would look into that and hopefully change that.
Yeah, thank you, Congressman. May I just say, too, though, that based on my experiences, I found that when we debate and argue over litigation, we paralyze ourselves from action. And my intent is to not allow the agencies to get paralyzed over talking about things that they have no control over. What we're going to do is look at the writing on the wall, if you will, and how do we need to strategize to still be effective in spite of the challenges that we have. And that's where we are today, and that's why I built a lot of accountability in our system, and that's why I'm meeting with all of the regional foresters and deputy chief on a monthly basis to look at what are those challenges and what are we going to do to mitigate those challenges.
Thank you. The gentlelady ranking member is recognized.